I'm Lisa Pavelka, and I want to guide you into working with sheet metal, so let's get going. So today I'm working with copper, but don't be afraid of working with sterling silver or the jeweler's bronze, so you can have a variety of colors and tonalities in your finished work. Now I start with a 26 gauge with the copper, but when I cut the metal ahead of time, I want to cut it slightly bigger than my final trimming size, because now we're going to texture it with one of our hammers here. Wear some type of protective eyewear and just be really mindful of where you handle your hammer. One of the hammers I like is the chasing hammer, because I like the little dimpled hammered metal look that you can get with the rounded end. Another hammer that I'm fond of is this multi-head hammer. So you just unscrew the ends, and it comes with a variety of different heads that you can use to get different effects on your metal. So you can also find a variety of different bench blocks. These are the heavy stainless steel blocks that you want to hammer your work on, but usually people use a little something to dampen the sound. This block is particularly nice because it has a rubber base between the top and the bottom, and that helps make the sound a little less noisy when you're doing your hammering. Now, I also make sure I'm starting with dead soft metal. The dead soft metal is going to be the softest of the metals, and it's going to have a good degree of bendability and workability. But through the process of texturing it, we're going to get a little work hardening. More about that. So when you use your hammer, you want to hold it with a firm grip, not a death grip, right towards the end. You want to keep control of that hammer, but we don't want to hold it here. We're not going to get as much force, and it's going to be harder to hammer our texture in. So I'm just going to take this fun little texture here, kind of looks like a waffle fry texture, and just start pounding. So I would continue going, and you can decide if you just want a random scattering of whatever texture you're putting into your metal, or perhaps you would like to get an overall effect like that. One thing that happens when you hammer is that work hardening I mentioned before. Work hardening means we're changing the molecular structure of the molecules within the metal, and it makes it harder and harder. So right now it would be very hard to bend, and if I did bend it, there's a really good chance it could break and crack. So I'm going to bring it back to a softer state through a process known as annealing. Heat is applied to the metal, and it's going to re-soften it. So once it's been annealed and once it's been pickled, it'll take off the fire scale, and then this can be addressed unless you like that kind of matte, frosty finish. You can always leave your piece like that. But you can see it's less than flat. By hammering the entire surface of the piece I want to start with, it's work hardened it, but it's also curled it. So against your block, you can take this rawhide mallet and very gently tap it down, because the metal's very soft again. It went back to dead soft after the annealing. And look how easy it was just to get it nice and flat and ready to work with again. What I do is just draw a nice straight edge close to the end. You have to be aware of how much metal you cut, but I usually don't want to have too much scrap metal set aside. And I love these French shears. There's a lot of different types of shears, but the French shears seem to be the best for the sheet metal. And I like these ones with Fire Mountain gems. Most French shears will have a little catch to keep it closed. That way, if you're storing it in a drawer or something, you don't reach in and cut yourself. And some of the other kinds can usually kind of get in the way when you're opening and closing your shears, because they have that nice spring action that assists your hand. So I like this little catch here. So I'm just going to align it and keep that aligned as you cut. So now I have a straight edge to go by, and you can even come back in there if it's not flat. And then I would draw on my piece and cut out my rectangle. So here you see I've got a piece that I prepared. Not only did I texture, anneal it and flatten it, I polished it. Now you can polish it beforehand, before you form it, or after I do it, I can also tumble them. So I've cut this piece to 2.5 inches long, okay, by 1/2 inch wide. This is a piece of sterling silver I textured. It's a little bit more subtle. You can see it isn't polished. It's the same length, but it's only 3/8 inches wide. From there, I want to draw a diagonal from corner to corner. But if you can see on camera here, I don't cut right up to the sharp point. I come in and just create a little bit of tail at each end, maybe a millimeter or so. And again, with your French shears, when you cut, be very mindful of following the line and realigning the scissors as you cut. Otherwise, you tend to get really sharp burrs that you would need to take off, and that can change the shape of your piece, but we still will need to address to do some finishing. So I'm cutting, and it's going to curl, maybe not in the direction you want it to. So you may have to uncurl it, one of your pieces, to shape it. But I'm being very careful to realign the scissors so I don't put a little notch or burr into these. Now, I wouldn't use these shears on a gauge of metal probably any heavier than 20. As the numbers go down on your gauge of metal, the metal's thicker. They probably are fine up to 18, but the blade would need to be sharpened probably sooner, because over time, just like scissors, your blades will get a little duller. Okay, so you can see quite a bit of curl in this one and not so much in this one. What I'm going to do is go back with my shears now, and I'm going to assist myself in doing a little bit of rounding. I'm just going to cut off a corner and work over a bead mat and aim down, or hold your finger on the edge so that you don't get sharp pieces of metal flying. But again, you should, if you're not already wearing some type of glasses or eyewear, you want to go ahead and wear some safety goggles and protection. So I'm just nipping it very lightly to get the end a little bit rounded. And I'm going to check the end here. Usually on the end there, it's just too narrow to want to have to round it. We're going to address that with some files. And this one, I'm just going to fold it out, or you can use your pliers. If this one came out a little bit wider at the end, so I'm going to cut a little off here, and I'm going to compensate if they're not quite even, which they're not. I'm going to come in and just bring down that tip a little bit, just to even them up. Now, they don't have to be exactly perfect. Nobody's going to come up with their calipers, or at least I'd be a little scared if they did, measure your earrings. But you want them pretty uniform. I would repeat that on the other side, but you get the idea, so we're just going to work with one of these here. So your edges might be a little bit rough. They shouldn't be too rough if you've cut well. And you can see we're not completely round. So I like to use a diamond file. You can use the crosscut files, but the beautiful thing about the diamond files is that they're taking off metal and shaping my piece from both directions with each stroke. With a crosscut file, it's usually only the downward stroke that you're really changing the shape of your metal. So you can hold it over your bench block or a bench pin, and I'm just going to go back and forth, and I'm just going to round the corners and work on both pieces to shape them so they're pretty uniform. Okay. Now, if you have an item like the economy handpiece, you can take that down with one of the sandpaper drill bits, or the jewel tool with the 3M Scotch-Brite wheel. We'll take that down in seconds. So I can just do this in just a few seconds. But there's something very gratifying too about doing everything with just the old-fashioned way. Now, you may have a little bit of a rough edge at the top and the bottom. You can take them off with a file, or just usually a little light stroke or two with some sandpaper, usually about 600 grit. If you want to really refine it, go to your 1200 grit. And I'm just going to take that corner down, and you can see it doesn't take a lot of time and a lot of work to get this nice rounded effect. So once I have my two pieces done and I'm satisfied with the shape and the smoothness of them, I'm going to align them up and mark a hole. So there's a lot of ways to do a hole. You can do a center punch, which is not probably going to go all the way through the metal, or it might make a little hole, and you would open it up with a drill bit, a handpiece drill bit, or the flex shaft type of handpiece. But just to mark your hole. And you don't want it too far away from the top of your piece, because you want to easily be able to place your ear wire in there. You may also need to space a small wire in between so it dangles freely. But if you're too close to the end, that becomes a weak spot. So I think about 2 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch is a nice bridge. Think of it as a bridge that protects your earring. And one of my favorite ways to do holes are these wonderful hole punching pliers. And this one is the 1.8 millimeter. You can get them in different sizes. This will cut a round hole, but you can also get them in different shape holes. So I don't have one set up here, but a cool little trick is sometimes when you punch, if you're very heavy-handed, this little bit at the end of the punch needle can leave a little dimple. So one thing you can do is just take an index card, cut a little square, punch the index card, and just run that up against the edge of that, and that will act as a cushion and help prevent you from over punching and getting a round mark around your circle. And I'm aligning the punch, and it goes through the metal really nice and easy, just like that. And the holes are generally really clean through and through. You can always enlarge that hole if you think it needs to be bigger, but that 1.8 millimeter was just perfect. But whenever you drill metal or punch it, you're going to have a raised bit of a burr on the other side. So you can just go in there with a flat file and or some sandpaper, and just bring it down. Because of this handling, this is why I often like to tumble a piece like this, because if I were to polish it all beforehand, I'm still going to lose some of that finish when I do my refining like I have here. Now, you don't need to have a whole lot of fancy pliers, but I love tools, and you're probably like me. You can do this with just a nice pair of round nose pliers, which that's what I usually finish up with. But I do love the Weber pliers. These bail making pliers that come in different sizes. So I'm going to want, at the wider point, I'm going to want a wider rotation. And as I go down, I'm going to make it more gradual. And that's why having some different size pliers can really come in handy and make this a lot easier. So on the pliers here, I'm going to take the smaller jaw, and I'm just going to start curling it. And I can see I can just crimp it over so I get not a real flat edge, I can get a nice rotation. And then I work on an angle as I go. And I start bringing it down, and I can tighten that rotation some more. And then I'm going to switch here to the smaller Weber pliers, and using the larger of these jaws, I can work it around, and I'm twisting the metal. I'm not just wrapping the metal because I don't want to make a spiral. I want to make a gradual rotation. So I also am pulling the metal down towards the tip of the pliers gently with my hands as I go. And then I just reposition the pliers and keep going. And then I come at it from the other side, because then it gets to the point where you can't really work in there from that angle. And if you want, you can hold some flat nose or chain nose pliers at the end, not so much at the tip, to kind of ease it around if that's easier on your hands. And now I'm going to my round nose pliers, which are a little bit graduated, and coming up there and just keep working it and working it. Now, you can certainly cut a longer piece of metal or a shorter piece of metal. Even the narrower piece of metal, like the silver, is going to give you a different effect. You can add more rotations. It looks like I'm going to end up with about 3.5. You can have fewer rotations, you can have more, but those are things that if you like this concept, you can play around with and modify in your design. You can even ball the ends of the silver if you're working with sterling silver. So now I'm pretty happy with that, but I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. So try not to do it with your hands, but again, you want it nice and smooth, the edge is nice and smooth, no roughness or little burrs on it. And I'm pulling apart. I don't know if you can tell that on camera. And I'm just going to bring this down and really curl that end in just a hair more. And if you want to get even fancier, if you leave a wide enough end, you can drill a hole in the end and dangle a pearl or a crystal from it, and that adds a little nice touch. So I try to get them fairly uniform. It's okay if they have more of an asymmetrical graduation. It's just whatever's pleasing to you, or if you sell your work, whatever's pleasing to your customers. But these are just a really fun earring that tends to get a lot of attention whenever I wear them. So up here, I'm going to rotate this a little bit more just because I want to. Whatever makes you happy, you're the boss, and you should make them whatever way you find pleasing. And I'm just going to draw this end up, pull it away, and twist that up. Okay, so I'll work with both, and I like to have them fairly matching. They don't have to be real exact. And at that point, it's just a simple process of easily finishing them up. We're going to take a jump ring here, a copper jump ring. And usually it doesn't need to be really big and pronounced. And we'll take our chain nose and our flat nose pliers. We're going to make sure we open the jump ring side to side. I've got 2 stuck here together. But before I do that, sometimes I just try to attach the ear wire just to see if it dangles freely and looks nice from there. But I have a feeling it needs a little bit more length in between there. You can also form the shape, if you like, with these pliers and decide to put the hole in after you've got everything bent and rotated. It's easier to do with the hole punching pliers than it is with a hand piece or a hand drill. At least I find it to be easier with that. And it's just such an invaluable tool. So we're going to go ahead and find a nice pair of French copper ear wires. Or you can make your own ear wires. It's a good use for a little leftover wire. And there you have it. One last little tip I want to share with you. They can be polished, which is certainly beautiful, but over time copper will need to be repolished because it's going to tarnish, and you might like that natural patina. But I want to show you and leave you with one last tip on how you can get a rainbow effect with a torch. A lot of people refer to that effect as fire painting. So hair pulled back, standing well away from your torch, working behind it, igniting it by pulling down the safety. And when you hold down the button, you want to switch and press this button down, and then you can release your thumb and it will stay on. Making sure our flame is nice and sharp. We don't want a soft, bushy flame. I'm just going to heat it up, and I'm just going to watch for some of that oxidation process to happen, but before it turns black, I'm looking for color, and I'm removing the flame. I'm seeing a little bit more deepening of the orange. Hopefully we'll get a good effect. And it's changing on me. And sometimes you start seeing, there we go, we're seeing a little bit of like a burnt orange or almost a red. It's turning a little pink. Now, be sure to get the flame off of it because it's going to keep changing color as it cools. Now I'm starting to see a little bit of lavender in there. Sometimes you'll get some blues or greens or purples. And you might not always be happy with the effect, but of course, again, you can go back and undo it and start over. There, I've got some nice purples in there and some blue tones. Let's turn this off. Now, quenching can also change the color because it's still hot, and rapidly cooling it can affect the color. So you can play around with that too. I'm going to be careful to pick it up because it's very hot, even though it'll cool quickly. And let's see from that angle if we can see some of the colors as I move it around. And from a different angle perhaps, maybe. So I'm pretty happy with that. But again, I prefer to do that step, if that's what you want to do, once my earrings are done. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to turn a simple sheet of metal into some beautiful spiral earrings. Thank you for joining us here in the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. And that's about it.